Welcome to another bicycle live stream, and welcome to World Vegan Day, Sunday, November the 1st. And it's an acknowledgement of animal rights. And this morning I'm going to be talking about what World Vegan Day is all about. It's all about one thing. Quite simply, an animal's right to be free. Something that we take for granted, and something that so many, countless animals around the world cannot take for granted. So let's think about how much we value our freedom, and then relate it back to animals. And let's think about how how much we take it for granted. Thank you. How much we value our freedom, and how difficult we find it personally when we don't have freedom. I've been on the bike since 4:30 a.m. this morning. I've ridden 44 kilometers. It is a perfect spring morning. I am enjoying the freedom to ride in this beautiful weather, to ride wherever I want to ride, to be out and about, to be exercising, to be having fresh air. And I am in a great state of gratitude for this. And this is something that, so many of us have access to. Whether we choose to take advantage of that freedom or not, of course, is again something that we have the free will to do. Now, this freedom that I'm taking advantage of today is not afforded to so many animals. And in so many cases, we could look at that lack of freedom and say that it's not even getting better. I mean, awareness is increasing, but the things we take for granted, the right to be free, to have free speech, to live freely, to have religious freedoms, to have all these other freedoms that we have gained, is something that is still being fought for animals. And so World Vegan Day is an opportunity to acknowledge this, that an animal's right to be free is at least as important as ours. And I would argue more important, based on the fact that so much of that freedom is taken from them. During my ride, just before I started the live stream, I went past a couple of kids that were fishing. Now, in that stream, that body of water, were fish, or are fish, swimming freely. And then along comes a couple of kids who are trying to take that freedom away from those fish. Let's bring it back to ourselves. How would we be if we're, just going about our daily activity? Say we've gone down the beach and we're having a swim in the water like the fish are having a swim. And then all of a sudden, our freedom's taken away from us. All of a sudden, we're struggling for breath. We've been hooked on a hook in our mouth, where we've got some species that is, say, non-human, that thinks that we're a delicacy and they want to kill us and eat us. When we put the shoe on the other foot like that, and we sort of put it into personal terms, we start to put ourselves in the position of the animals and the oppression that they face. And I'm talking about, at the moment, I'm just talking about a fish swimming freely in the water. What about taking away the freedom of an animal for its entire life? Pigs in gestation crates, or pigs that live a short life and then are gassed in gas chambers. which is apparently a humane way for them to die. What about the male chicks macerated at birth because they're of no use to the industry, or the male calves that live a very short life before becoming veal products because they're of no use to the dairy industry? This sort of oppression is, the more you look at it, it's sickening. It's a very, very terrible reality of what life is for the majority of living beings on this planet, because animals far outnumber us. Now let's compare it back to the current situation also that we have, where we have had a reduced amount of freedom because of COVID-19, which ironically came about because of our mistreatment and use of animals. So we have, sort of ironically, karmically, however you want to describe it, we have had a small experience of what it's like to lose freedom. We've had to, especially in Australia, in Melbourne and other places where there's been extreme lockdowns, stage 3 lockdowns, people have had to endure a lack of freedom. And it has had quite a dramatic effect. When you look at the amount of time that they've had to endure it, it's only been a matter of a few months. But the effect that it's had mentally, physically, socially, spiritually, emotionally, the effect that it's had on people in just that short time, it's been quite profound. And there's been quite an uprising because we can't handle a lack of freedom. We just can't handle it. We have to have freedom. Is it any different for the animals? Of course not. Of course it's not any different for the animals. And remember, they outnumber us by, I don't know by what amount, but they outnumber us. And when we're talking about animals that are born into oppression, when you look at chickens and the situation that they are born into, and they can't even move around. They're crammed into such a small space, living an incredibly short life before being slaughtered. You look at that and compare it to us not being able to handle a couple of months of having to stay at home, where we have food, water, sanitation, entertainment, friends, family. We can't handle a couple of months of being oppressed, losing our freedom. And yet animals like dairy cows that are born, the female dairy cow born into an oppressive environment where it's regarded as a commodity and is experiencing an entire life devoid of freedom. And it's just such a, it's just, I can't even think of the words to describe it. How do you describe that situation? The evil that goes into thinking it's okay for an animal to be born into an environment where it has no freedom, has no free will. Not just an animal, any living being to be born into that situation. The evil minds that think that that's acceptable have perpetrated such a hell on earth for animals that there's only one good thing that'll come out of it. And that is, and I don't know if good thing's the right word to use, but they will pay the price. The people that have perpetrated this hell towards other living beings, they will pay the price. No bad deed goes unpunished. And you can know that for a fact, that they will experience the torment that they have put others through. That is how it works. So there is a repercussion. But how does that help animals now? The So as I say, the one thing that veganism is about, the one thing that World Vegan Day represents, is an animal's right to be free. And when people talk about veganism these days, you know, it's usually in relation to food. And we should always remember, veganism equals animal rights. And that should always be in our mind. Anything else that comes as a benefit from it, such as wonderful vegan food, other vegan products, cruelty-free products, is a benefit. Improved vegan health. All these are a benefit, but they're not the reason for being vegan. You know, and there has to be that distinction made between the reason for being vegan, which is always an ethical choice, and the modern popular take on veganism, which is really about plant-based food and health choices and that. So it's more, it shifts the focus away from the animals towards a more personal, selfish reason. So, and you know, I love talking about vegan food. Vegan food activism is a wonderful way to get people interested in doing something about the animals, as long as it brings us back to the ethical stance. And it's interesting to when you think about it, there's always been vegan food. There's always been fruit and vegetables and nuts and seeds and grains, etc., etc., etc. It's always been there. We've always had it. So we've always, you know, it's not a great revelation now to be able to say, oh, look at the vegan food available. It's like, mate, it was always there, you know. And there were people throughout all of history that were taking advantage of that, you know. The difference is an awareness, almost like a, dare I say, a marketing that has become connected to it. So what I want you to think about today on World Vegan Day, November the 1st, is it is about an animal's right to be free. They have the same rights and the same desires that we have. They wish for freedom to live, to have love, to have family, to be able to play, to, you know, all the things that we take for granted and that we put value in are the same for all living beings. And it is the most evil, sickening thing to take that away from another, whether it's an animal or a human. So live vegan and save lives. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. I'll speak to you soon. Ahimsa.